With National Native News, I'm Art Hughes, in for Antonia Gonzalez. A bill that reinstates press freedoms for tribally funded media on the Muscogee Creek Nation is awaiting the signature of Principal Chief James Floyd. The Journal-Record newspaper reports the Muscogee National Council approved legislation over the weekend that reverses a November decision to give tribal executives editorial power over Muscogee media. The new legislation reinstates the 3-member editorial board that creates a buffer between editors and tribal officials. The paper reports Floyd has 10 days to either sign it or veto it. If he doesn't act, it automatically becomes law. The Sitka Tribe of Alaska is suing state fish and wildlife agencies over subsistence harvesting of herring roe in Sitka Sound. In a written statement, Sitka Chair Kathy Hope Erickson said her tribe cannot sit by while the state of Alaska shirks its statutory and constitutional duties to citizens by not making herring roe subsistence use a priority. Earlier this year, the Sitka tribe unsuccessfully urged new conservation measures by Alaska's Board of Fisheries. Tribal officials say subsistence harvests have steadily declined in recent years. Alaska Public Media reported last spring that the Sitka roe fishery has shut down early for 4 of the last 6 years without meeting the annual quotas. A high school class in South Dakota is devoting an entire semester to studying the 150-year-old treaty that established what was then known as the Great Sioux Reservation. Teacher Lita Brandis with the St. Francis Indian School on the Rosebud Reservation developed the curriculum for teaching the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 from scratch because she could not find an adequate syllabus. Victoria Wicks has the story.
Lita Brandis says her first step in developing the class was to establish a relationship with the students as well as with the material.
I look at the children as my grandchildren, so I really personalize that, and then I say, what would I want my grandchildren to know? What do they need to take away when we leave, when we're done?
The 1868 language seems ancient to high schoolers in the 21st century, and so the students started by finding unfamiliar words and defining them. After that, students dissected each of the treaty's 17 articles and translated them. Student Cole Castaway describes the process.
It was a challenge at first because of the vocabulary, but after we found the definitions, it got easier to understand and summarize.
The students then wrote the treaty in their own words according to their understanding and put the document in binders. Lita Brandis says the class then examined how the treaty is relevant today.
This is still a living document, and it could still work for us depending on how much we understand it.
Brandis realized the word agent in the treaty refers today to the BIA's Rosebud Agency superintendent, and so she invited the woman to come in and talk with the class. She says she has also been trying to find someone from Indian Health Services to come in. Brandis wants to continue the class for another semester and bring in more people whose modern roles serve to fulfill treaty promises. And she says she'll explore more thoroughly with her students how promises were broken. For National Native News, I'm Victoria Wicks in Rapid City, South Dakota.
The Pueblo of Acoma in New Mexico is holding a formal ceremony to repatriate items of cultural patrimony this week. The event will include BIA officials and the U.S. Attorney for New Mexico. A press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office does not specify which items are being repatriated, but says they were recovered in federal investigations. Last year, sacred Acoma items turned up in a Paris auction. Federal officials put pressure on the auction house to halt the sale. In September, a judge issued a warrant for the return of the item. That sale prompted U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico to author legislation aimed at shutting down export of sacred and culturally important Native items that are held in violation of several U.S. laws established to protect them. The law has so far stalled in the Senate. With National Native News, I'm Art Hughes.
National Native News is produced at the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios by Quantic Broadcast Corporation. Funding is by Odawi Law Group, provider of Indian law solutions, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, with support from the Public Radio Satellite System.
From northern Minnesota, Red Lake Nation Foods is pleased to support this show and share the bounty of the harvests, wild rice products, and wild fruit jams, jellies, and syrups produced by American Indians and available at redlakenationfoods.com. Support by AARP. AARP creates and connects people to unique tools and programs, helps conserve personal resources, and tackles issues that matter most to individuals, families, and communities. More at aarp.org.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.